I was driving with my fiancée and my 3-year-old niece. When my niece started crying, my fiancée gave her phone to distract her. Then a voicemail played from a man's voice. "I can't forget last night. It was something special, and what you did down there was absolutely amazing." She simply closed her eyes in frustration, and the drive was supposed to be uneventful. I remember thinking that was a good thing. It was late afternoon, traffic moving but not stalled, the kind of ordinary weekday moment that does not register as important while it is happening. I was behind the wheel, my fiancée Tessa sat in the passenger seat, and my 3-year-old niece Lily was strapped into her car seat in the back, swinging her shoes against the upholstery in that absent-minded way toddlers have. I had picked Lily up from daycare because my sister was stuck in a work meeting, and Tessa insisted on coming along, saying it would be nice to spend time together before dinner. For the first 10 minutes, everything felt normal. Lily talked to herself, pointing at trucks and asking questions that made no sense if you tried to answer them logically. Tessa scrolled on her phone, occasionally smiling at something I could not see. The radio was low. The air smelled faintly like the coffee I had spilled on myself earlier that morning and never had time to change out of. Then Lily started crying. It was not a dramatic meltdown at first. It began as a soft whine, the kind that usually meant she was tired or bored. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw her lower lip trembling. I asked if she was okay. She kicked her feet harder and started crying in earnest, that high, breathless sound that builds fast and demands attention. Tessa reacted before I did. She turned around in her seat, leaned back toward Lily, and held out her phone. She said Lily could watch something. Lily reached for it immediately, tears still streaking down her cheeks. Tessa unlocked the screen and handed it back without really looking at me. It was an automatic gesture, practiced, like she had done this 100 times before. I kept my eyes on the road. The crying stopped almost instantly, replaced by quiet sniffles and the tapping of small fingers on glass. I relaxed a little. I was about to say something light, maybe joke about how technology was parenting for us now, when the sound came through the car speakers. It was not a video. It was not music. It was a man's voice. Clear, calm, intimate. The phone had connected to the car's audio system the moment it started playing. There was no warning chime, no notification preview, just his voice filling the space between us. He was talking slowly, like someone savoring a memory. He said he could not forget last night. He said it had been something special. He went on to describe what she had done, specifically, explicitly, with a confidence that came from familiarity, not fantasy. There was no hesitation in his tone, no uncertainty. It sounded like a man leaving a message he fully expected to be heard and appreciated. My hands tightened on the steering wheel so suddenly my knuckles went white. I did not look at Tessa right away. I did not need to. The silence after the voicemail ended was heavy and stretched, broken only by the faint cartoon music now playing for Lily in the back seat. The road ahead blurred slightly as my pulse surged, but I kept the car steady. Then I looked. Tessa had closed her eyes. Not in shock, not in panic, in frustration. Her head leaned back against the seat, her lips pressed together. She exhaled sharply through her nose, like someone annoyed by an interruption, not exposed by a mistake. She did not reach for the phone. She did not speak. She did not look at me. That reaction told me more than any confession ever could. I slowed the car and pulled onto the shoulder without signaling, gravel crunching under the tires. I put the car in park. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, but my voice came out level when I spoke. I asked her what that was. She opened her eyes and stared straight ahead through the windshield. She said it was not what it sounded like. She said she did not want to do this right now. She said there was a child in the car. I reached back and gently took the phone from Lily's hands, telling her we were almost there and everything was okay. She nodded, already distracted by the world outside the window again. I muted the audio system. Then I turned fully toward Tessa. I told her to explain it. She rubbed her forehead and finally looked at me. Her eyes were irritated, not fearful. She said it was a voicemail that played at the wrong time. She said it was private. She said I was overreacting. I asked her whose voice it was. She did not answer. I asked her again, more slowly. She said it was someone she worked with. She said it did not mean anything. She said it was complicated. I took the phone, unlocked it, and opened the voicemail app. There was no resistance. She did not try to stop me. That was another detail that lodged itself into my memory. People who think they can still control the situation often let you look, because they believe they can talk their way out later. The thread was long. There were messages going back weeks. Some were short. Some were long. Some were from him. Some were from her. I did not need to play them all to understand the pattern. The timestamps overlapped with nights. She said she was working late. With the weekend, she claimed she visited a friend out of town. With the night, she came home smelling like hotel soap and said it was a new detergent at work. I asked her if it had been going on during our engagement. She said yes. I asked her how long. She shrugged. That shrug ended something in me. It was small, almost casual, but it carried the weight of someone who had already justified everything internally and was now tired of pretending to care about the impact. I did not yell. I did not slam anything. I did not say dramatic words that would echo later. I put the phone down between us. I told her to get out of the car. She laughed once, short and sharp, and said I was being ridiculous. She said we could talk about it at home. She said I should calm down. I started the engine. I told her we were not going home. I drove straight to my sister's house. The silence in the car was absolute this time. Lily hummed to herself, oblivious. Tessa stared out the window, jaws set, arms crossed. I focused on the road, on stopping at red lights, on not letting my hands shake. When we arrived, I carried Lily inside and handed her to my sister without explanation. I told her something came up and I would call later. She looked at my face and did not ask questions. She just nodded. I went back outside. Tessa was still sitting in the car. I opened the passenger door and told her it was over. I told her the engagement was done. I told her to give me the ring. She stared at me for a long second, then took it off and dropped it into my hand. The sound of metal against skin felt final in a way I had never experienced before. She said I was making a mistake. I closed my fingers around the ring. I told her parents were on the way. She looked genuinely surprised then, like she had not considered that the consequences would expand beyond us. She asked why I would involve them. I told her she needed a ride, and I was not giving it. As I stepped back and closed the door, I saw her expression shift again, irritation giving way to calculation. That was when I knew this was only the beginning. I did not sleep that night, not because I was replaying scenes or searching for explanations, but because events kept moving without waiting for permission. Once something like that voicemail cracks open your life, the pressure does not release on its own. It forces motion. Every hour that passes without action feels like consent, and I was not going to let that happen. By the time morning came, the car ride felt distant and strangely clinical, like an incident report I had already filed in my head. I woke early, left the apartment before Tessa returned with her parents to collect her things, and drove to a quiet lot near my office. I sat there with coffee I barely tasted and her phone in my hand, scrolling again through the thread I had seen the day before. The man's name was Grant. His number was saved under a shortened version of his name, casual, familiar. The call history showed a pattern that lined up neatly with the gaps in Tessa's schedule. I did not need to speculate about timing or intent. The structure was already there. People do not leave intimate voicemails like that by accident, and they do not do it once. I called the number. He answered quickly, like he had been expecting it, or like he never screened calls because he assumed control of his environment. I put the call on speaker and said my name. I told him whose phone I was calling from. I told him he had left a message that played in front of a child. There was a pause, short but meaningful. Then he acknowledged it. He did not apologize. He did not sound confused. He sounded mildly annoyed, as if the inconvenience was being contacted rather than what he had done. He confirmed the relationship. He confirmed it had been ongoing. He confirmed he knew she was engaged. He added, without being prompted, that the wedding was not going to happen anyway. He said she had told him that. I asked him how long. He gave me a time frame that stretched back far enough to overlap with holidays, with birthdays, with conversations about seating charts and caterers. He spoke with the confidence of someone who believed the truth was on his side, because he had been fed a version of it consistently. I asked him if he was married. He said yes. I asked him if his spouse knew. He said not yet. I ended the call without warning him of anything. There was no need. He had already given me what I needed, not as evidence to collect, but as confirmation to act. Within the hour, Tessa's parents called me. They asked if we could meet. Their tone suggested they believed this was a misunderstanding, something that could be smoothed over with conversation and shared disappointment. I agreed to meet, but not privately. I chose a neutral place near their home, a cafe that was always busy, always public. They arrived together. Tessa came separately and arrived late. She looked composed, dressed carefully, hair done, the image of someone who had decided how she wanted to be perceived. She sat down without greeting me and immediately began explaining how things had gotten out of hand. She spoke about stress, about feeling unseen, about mistakes that were being exaggerated. I did not interrupt her. I let her finish. Then I placed the phone on the table and asked her parents if they wanted to hear what I had heard. Her mother froze. Her father looked at Tessa, then back at me, then nodded slowly. I played the voicemail. People react differently when confronted with something they cannot reinterpret. Her mother's face collapsed inward, like a structure losing internal support. Her father went rigid, eyes fixed on the table, jaw clenched. Tessa tried to speak over it. I turned the volume up. When it ended, there was a silence so complete it felt artificial, like the cafe around us had paused to listen. Then her father asked her if it was true. She said it was complicated. I told them I had already spoken to the man. I told them his name. I told them he was married. I told them he believed the wedding would not happen. Her mother started crying quietly. Her father did not look at her anymore. He looked at me and asked what I intended to do. I told him the engagement was over. I told him I would be canceling everything that day. I told him I expected no resistance when Tessa came to collect her belongings. That was when her phone started vibrating on the table. She looked at the screen and turned it face down. I recognized the number pattern. I picked it up and slid it toward her father. It was Grant. Her father answered. The conversation was brief and brutal. Grant attempted to control the narrative, to present himself as misled, to frame the situation as mutual confusion. He was interrupted repeatedly. Her father asked him direct questions and did not allow him to deflect. When Grant admitted, again, that he knew she was engaged, the call ended. Tessa stood up abruptly and left the cafe. Her parents stayed. They apologized. Not performatively, not defensively. They apologized in the way people do when they realize they cannot repair something and are acknowledging the damage instead. Her father asked if there was anything he could do to make the transition easier. I told him the deposits were already paid. I told him the venue contract was in Tessa's name because she insisted on handling that part. I told him I would be sending a list of cancellations that afternoon. He nodded and said they would handle their side. By midday, the news had begun to spread. I canceled the venue first, then the caterer, then the photographer. Each call followed the same pattern. Surprise, then confirmation, then policy. I stayed calm and factual. I did not embellish. I did not vent. I simply stated that the wedding would not be happening and asked for written confirmation of cancellation and penalties. When I reached the venue manager, she hesitated and said there was already a note on the account. I asked what it said. She said someone had called earlier asking about refund policies in the event of personal conflict. I knew who that was. By late afternoon, my sister called me. She said Lily had been unusually quiet and asked what had happened in the car the day before. I told her the truth, carefully, without graphic detail, but without protecting Tessa's image. My sister did not raise her voice. She did not ask questions. She told me Lily would not be around Tessa again. In the early evening, an unfamiliar number called my phone. It was Grant's spouse. She had my name because she had gone through his phone after he received the call from Tessa's father. She did not cry. She did not accuse. She asked me to confirm dates and locations. I did. I sent her the timestamps. I did not editorialize. She asked where Tessa lived. I told her. An hour later, Grant's car appeared outside my building. Not for me. For Tessa. I watched from across the street as his spouse confronted him in the open, voices rising, gestures sharp and unrestrained. Neighbors slowed down. Phones came out. The scene was not theatrical, just raw and unavoidable. When Grant tried to leave, she blocked the car. When he tried to speak, she raised her hand and silenced him. Tessa did not come outside. By the time the police arrived to de-escalate, the damage was already done. Not legally, not violently, but socially. People had seen enough. Stories do not need every detail to spread. That night, Tessa messaged me repeatedly. She alternated between anger and remorse, between blame and pleading. I did not respond. I sent one message instead, informing her that I had frozen the joint account and that she would need to coordinate through her parents regarding belongings. She replied with threats about embarrassment and reputation. I did not answer. The next morning, my bank confirmed the freeze and flagged several recent charges linked to travel. They asked if I wanted to dispute them. I said yes. That was when I understood that the voicemail had not just exposed an affair. It had exposed a structure built on assumption and access. And now that structure was collapsing under its own weight. The consequences were no longer private, and they were no longer theoretical. They had momentum. The speed of it surprised me. Not the collapse itself, but how quickly the consequences began to stack once the momentum tipped. People talk about fallout as if it happens in waves, spaced out enough to process. That was not my experience. It arrived like a chain reaction, each event triggering the next before there was time to take a breath. The morning after the scene outside my building, I went back to the apartment with a locksmith. I did not want drama, and I did not want accusations later about missing items or forced entry. I had already coordinated with Tessa's parents, and they agreed she would not be present. The locksmith changed the locks while I stood in the hallway, answering emails on my phone and watching neighbors pretend not to look. Inside, the place felt different. Not emptier, just exposed. Drawers were half open. The closet was uneven, one side stripped down to bare hangers. I collected my documents first. Passport, birth certificate, insurance paperwork. Then I moved methodically through shared items, separating what was clearly mine from what was clearly hers. I did not rush, and I did not linger. While I was there, my phone buzzed with a notification from the bank. The dispute process had begun, and the charges I flagged were under review. There were more than I expected. Hotel stays, ride shares, meals in cities she claimed she never visited. None of it was catastrophic on its own, but the pattern was undeniable. Shared money had been used to fund a parallel life, and that mattered, not emotionally but formally. By noon, I received an email from her consulting firm. It was brief and carefully worded. They thanked me for bringing a matter to their attention through a third party. They informed me that Tessa's contract had been temporarily suspended pending internal review. They did not ask questions. They did not ask for proof. The implication was clear. They already had enough. I knew where that had come from. Grant's spouse had not stopped with me. That afternoon, my sister came by. She brought Lily's backpack, which Tessa had left in the car, and asked if we could talk. We sat at the kitchen table. Lily was not there. My sister told me Lily had woken up during the night crying, repeating a word she did not usually use. It took time to figure out what she meant, but eventually it became clear she was repeating part of the voicemail, not understanding it, just echoing the sound and tone. That landed harder than anything else had so far. My sister did not accuse me. She did not ask why I let it happen. She simply said that, for now, Lily would not be around Tessa, and that she would be documenting the incident in writing. Not for revenge. For boundaries. She said she needed it on record in case questions were ever asked later. I agreed without hesitation. That evening, Tessa tried a different approach. She posted online. It was not a confession. It was a carefully framed statement about betrayal, about private matters being exposed unfairly, about mistakes made under pressure. She did not name me, but she did not have to. People connected the dots quickly. Comments appeared within minutes, some supportive, some skeptical. Then the skeptical ones started asking specific questions. About dates. About Grant. About the public argument. By nightfall, screenshots were circulating that contradicted her version. Not messages, not recordings, but timelines. People comparing notes. Someone who had seen her at the cafe. Someone who had seen Grant's spouse outside the building. Someone who had worked with her and recognized the overlap in travel dates. She took the post down an hour later. The next day, her parents called again. This time, their tone was different. Less apologetic, more strained. They told me Tessa had come home and that the situation had escalated there as well. She had argued. She had accused them of siding against her. She had demanded they intervene with me. They asked what I wanted. I told them I wanted clean separation. Financial clarity. No surprises. Her father asked about the venue penalties. I forwarded him the confirmation emails. The numbers were significant. He was silent for a long moment, then said they would cover the portion tied to Tessa's decisions, including the penalty clause she insisted on signing without my review. That was the first time since the voicemail that I felt something close to relief. Not satisfaction, not victory. Just the sense that at least one part of the mess was being handled responsibly. Later that afternoon, Grant called me again. I did not answer. He left a voicemail this time, ironic in its symmetry. He said things had spiraled. He said his spouse had contacted his employer. He said there was an ethics review underway. He said he wanted to talk man to man. I deleted the message. An hour later, his spouse texted me to let me know she had retained counsel and that she might need a formal statement from me later. I replied that I would cooperate fully. I meant it. The apartment grew quieter as the days passed. I packed slowly, choosing a new place to live closer to my office and farther from shared routines. Friends reached out, some cautiously, some bluntly. I told them the truth without embellishment. The same version every time. Consistency mattered more than persuasion. Tessa attempted contact again, this time through mutual friends. She wanted to talk privately. She wanted closure. She wanted to explain things that, according to her, I did not understand. I declined every request. By the end of the week, the bank resolved the dispute in my favor. The charges tied directly to the affair were reversed. The joint account was formally separated. The financial thread that had bound us was severed cleanly, leaving no loose ends. Then came the final confirmation from the venue. The penalty had been charged to Tessa's personal account, as per the contract. The email included a neutral acknowledgement of receipt and a wish for future success in other endeavors. I forwarded it to her parents. They replied with a short message confirming they had seen it and would handle the aftermath. That night, I sat alone in the half-empty apartment and realized something important. The story had already moved beyond us. It was no longer about betrayal in private or confrontation in a car. It had become a series of documented decisions and consequences, each one visible, each one traceable. There was no version of events left that could be reshaped with emotion or explanation. The structure she had relied on had collapsed completely, and the final impact was still coming. By the time the last boxes were taped shut, the noise had faded. Not the consequences, just the noise. The calls slowed. The messages stopped arriving in clusters. What remained was quieter and heavier, the kind of weight that does not announce itself, but reshapes everything it touches. I moved into the new apartment on a Thursday morning. It was smaller, cleaner, closer to work, and free of shared history. I signed the lease alone, handed over the deposit, and walked through the empty rooms with the property manager while she explained trash days and parking rules. It felt procedural, which was exactly what I needed. Procedure does not argue. It does not bargain. It just moves forward. That afternoon, I received formal notice from the bank confirming the final separation of accounts. The email included a summary of reverse charges and a closing statement that showed a clean break down the middle. No ambiguity. No future adjustments. I forwarded the document to my personal folder and archived the thread. Money had been one of the last levers of access, and now it was gone. The following day, my sister sent me the written statement she had prepared regarding Lily. It was factual and restrained. Dates, times. The content of the voicemail described without graphic detail. The impact on Lily's behavior noted plainly. She asked me to read it and confirm accuracy before she filed it with her records. I did, and I confirmed. We did not discuss it further. We did not need to. On Monday morning, an email arrived from Tessa's former consulting firm. The subject line was neutral. The content was not. They informed her, copied to me by mistake or design, that the internal review had concluded. Her contract was terminated effective immediately. The reasons cited were breaches of professional conduct and misuse of client-related travel. They thanked her for her contributions and wished her well. I did not reply. I did not forward it. I simply marked it unread and let it sit where it landed. Information does not require reaction to be real. Later that day, Grant's spouse contacted me again. She asked if I would be willing to provide a signed statement summarizing our phone call and the timeline I had already shared. I agreed. We met at her attorney's office, exchanged minimal pleasantries, and completed the paperwork. Grant was not present. His name appeared often. As I left the building, I saw him across the street, sitting in his car, hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. He did not look at me. I did not acknowledge him. There was nothing left to exchange. By midweek, the social consequences settled into place. Invitations stopped arriving. Group chats went quiet. A few people reached out privately to apologize for not seeing things earlier. I accepted those apologies without discussion. Blame was not transferable at that point. Everyone had already chosen where to stand. Tessa's parents called one final time. They told me they had repaid the venue penalties in full and had transferred the remaining shared deposits back to me. They did not ask for gratitude. They did not ask for forgiveness. They asked if I needed anything else. I told them no. They said they understood. After that call, there were no more bridges left to manage. Tessa attempted one last contact a week later. It was an email, not a message. Longer, more controlled. She acknowledged the affair without excuses. She acknowledged the financial misuse. She asked for a meeting, not to reconcile, but to apologize in person and explain how things had spiraled. I read it once. Then I archived it. Some explanations arrived too late to change anything, and hearing them only serves the person offering them. The final consequence arrived quietly. It came in the form of a notice from the venue, confirming that the date originally reserved for our wedding had been rebooked. The email included a cheerful line about wishing all parties future happiness. It was impersonal and efficient. It closed a chapter one had already walked away from. That evening, I unpacked the last box in the new apartment. It contained nothing sentimental, just kitchen items and books I had not needed immediately. I arranged them on the shelves and sat down on the floor, back against the wall, and let the silence settle. There was no rush of relief. No dramatic sense of closure. There was clarity. The voicemail had not ruined something good. It had revealed something unsustainable. The events that followed were not revenge or escalation. They were consequences unfolding in sequence, each one rooted in a choice already made. Tessa lost her engagement, her professional standing, and the trust of the people who had defended her longest. Grant lost his marriage and his position, not because of exposure alone, but because he assumed discretion was protection. Families were fractured, reputations altered, routines rewritten. And Lily was protected. That mattered more than anything else. Weeks later, when people asked how I was doing, I told them the truth. I said I was stable. I said things were quieter. I said I was moving forward. I did not dramatize it, and I did not minimize it. Both distort reality in different ways. The story did not end with reconciliation or regret. It ended with accountability and distance. And that was enough.